minute to figure its life out. Oh, disconnected, reconnected. There we go. Okay. All right. It's that nice little thing that we do in the mornings where we make sure things are up and running as they should, give people a second to hop on, and it's happening. We're doing it. Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. All right. Good morning, good morning. I hope everybody's doing well today. Gonna give it just another minute for everybody to hop on, so bear with me yapping for another minute. Um, I don't know if you guys have been dealing with this, but the weather has certainly dropped where we are, so it's definitely made for some busier birds at the feeders. It's still been interesting to see how much activity we're getting, a mix of just natural food and mild weather, but certainly with the colder weather, that's going to encourage some activity. Good morning. Thanks so much for hopping on. I really appreciate it. So I hope everybody's keeping an eye out for their birds, keeping those feeders clean, keeping that water as thawed as possible in certain cases. But it is 8:30, so we're gonna go ahead and just hop right into it. So, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me today. My name is Jolene. I'm a certified songbird feeding specialist with Wild Birds Limited of Concord, and today we are talking about chickadees, which I absolutely love. These little guys. Sometimes, when compared to the other fun birds at the feeders like cardinals and bluebirds and goldfinches, they don't always get as much love, but they're still very much appreciated at those feeders, so we're going to talk about them. If you guys have any questions during the presentation, I'll be doing my best to follow along, but I'll definitely be sure to get to them at the end of the presentation as well too. So we're going to just hop right into it as well. So with chickadees in general, these guys are still a part of the order Passeriformes, but specifically they're in the family Paridae, which means they are closely related to tits, titmice, and other chickadees. For our area, we have primarily the Carolina chickadee, who has more range in like the southeast section of the United States. They are a non-migratory species, so it's not uncommon to have them throughout your yard year round. They do prefer more of a mixed deciduous habitat, so they do prefer a lot of like oaks and maples and sweet gums, trees that lose their leaves in the fall. They also are looking for areas that have a lot of tree cavities for nesting, which we'll talk about later as well. But a lot of people oftentimes confuse the Carolina chickadee for the black-capped chickadee, who we'll be talking more about their distinctions in just a second. But the black-capped chickadee actually has a much northern range in comparison to the Carolina chickadee. The black-capped is also non-migratory, but there are occasional eruptions that can occur with any northern species, essentially depending on what the growing season was like during nesting season, or if there is a lack of resources in the winter. That an eruption is when these birds push their range out farther to explore for good resources. There is a little bit of range overlap between blackcaps and Carolina chickadees. If we look at the previous map once more, they kind of stop off in like the Virginia area here, and you notice they do dip down into the Appalachian area into North Carolina as well, and that's in their year-round range. So there are some records of hybridization with Carolina chickadees, not many, but they do exist. And remember, with hybrids, you can often determine when it is a hybrid due to a mix of both species in that individual. So oftentimes their song can be a mix of both species, and they carry physical traits from both birds as well. Now, when it comes to IDing chickadees, sometimes it's pretty straightforward. These birds are very small and they often are very round. So they have a big head and a very large neck. So they don't really have any distinctive traits other than round in their shape. They do have a kind of shorter pointed bill a little bit, and they do have a longer tail. Unlike wrens, who have more of a curved, longer bill and an upright tail when they're really inquisitive about something as well. But they both have a very kind of similar shape in that regard. When it comes to their coloration, both the Carolina and the black-capped chickadee have a black cap and kind of a black bib right underneath the beak as well. On their backs, it's kind of that gray coloration on the back and the wings, as well as the tail, while the chest and lower body is more of that kind of gray, buffy, white coloration. Now, between the two of them, there is not much physical distinction, which can make these guys pretty frustrating. So knowing the range of these birds and where they can be found is the first important part. Because if you're in one of the southern states and the black-capped chickadee is not there, we're doing well. You know, it's a Carolina chickadee. But in the case where we're not really sure and there's some range overlap, the main physical distinctions are the fact that the black-capped chickadee has white streaking along its wings and its tail. You'll notice that the Carolina chickadee does not have much of that present. It's more of that light gray coloration. So that is a big distinction there. And then a very subtle distinction is the fact that the Carolina chickadee has some more buffy kind of gray coloration on the back of its neck, where the black-cap does not have that. So it's very minor differences if you've never seen them side by side. So that can make it very frustrating to kind of ID there as well. But keep in mind, because these are two different species, that also means that their songs and their calls, while they may be similar, are still distinct as well. So you can also use this as a potential identification point. Just as a reminder, songs are often performed in the breeding season, so usually spring, summer, maybe a little bit of early fall, while calls can be done throughout the year. They're usually a lot more simple in tune and pattern, and they are used to help communicate and determine like potential threats and things like that as well, while songs are used to kind of announce territory and attract potential mates too. So for Carolina chickadees, they actually have one of the longer songs of the different chickadee species. Their song is more like a Phoebe, Phoebe, so it's 4 notes and it's a little bit more drawn out. So it sounds something like this. 4 notes, 2 together. Okay? So that's our Carolina chickadee. So that's the one we're going to hear a lot during the summer season. And then with the black-capped chickadee, let's see, theirs is a much faster song. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Phoebe, Phoebe. Much faster in comparison. So definitely a lot of that distinction there. And then for the Carolina chickadee's call, this one is well known. It's that chickadee-dee-dee-dee, fast, like their name kind of song. So you have that kind of uptick in the first part, and then that dee-dee-dee-dee-dee that follows. And this can change pitch and duration depending on what they're communicating or what's going on. But also, let me double check which one I'm using here. Okay. They also, for the black-capped chickadee, it can sound something like this. So, speed and duration and pitch can kind of vary with those. The songs can be a little bit more easy to follow along with, which is helpful, but definitely you can use those sounds to help ID as well when birds look very similar. These are some of the other chickadees that can actually be found in North America, so there's a lot more than we anticipate. The black-capped and the Carolina are both more on the eastern side of the Mississippi River. The mountain chickadee can be found more out in the west and some of the Midwest. Boreal chickadees are found up in the boreal forests and in the Canada area. Chestnut-backed chickadees are found in the northeast of the states and then some of Canada as well. The gray-headed chickadee is very... you don't see much of him, but he's located up in Alaska. And then the Mexican chickadee is one of the southernmost species of chickadees, and that is found in the Mexico area. So very cool, lots of different chickadees in the area, sometimes more than we anticipate. They all, again, have that orb shape of a large head, thick neck, and kind of a round body with a longer tail as well, too. But they also still have that cap and that bib as well. So they're lots of fun. I thoroughly enjoy them. When it comes to their diet, these birds are omnivorous, so they're going to be focusing more on caterpillars and other insects during the summertime especially, and then taking advantage of seeds and berries in the wintertime. They are able to determine where to forage by inspecting leaf damage and tree species. So if they notice a lot of leaf damage from caterpillars that have been eating at the leaves, they'll check out those locations, especially if they know it's a species that they're looking for. Now, these birds are very acrobatic, which I never get tired of watching them. They're able to cling upside down on the ends of limbs and are very, yeah, just very capable when they are foraging as well. So this is an example. They do check out sweet gum trees, so that those nice spiny seed balls that nobody likes to step on, but they are very helpful to a wide variety of insects and birds, so they have no problem inspecting those. They also have no problem holding on upside down, which is a lot of fun to see. So they're very lightweight, so they can hold on to a single leaf while inspecting for food and other resources. So these are just different types of gleaning strategies that they could potentially take advantage of. And one of the other things that I really appreciate about chickadees and titmice as well, they perform the same behavior, is that these birds like to dine and dash. So if you have feeders up, these birds take a seed and run, often, or fly away, I guess. And what they'll do is they'll land on a nearby branch, hold onto that piece of food, and then start hammering down on it to open up the shell of the seed that they're looking for. So they're very capable of eating a variety of food options, and will use multiple strategies in order to complete that task. So they work very hard, and I love it. You can see he's almost done here. And yeah. So very good at what they do. Employ a lot of different strategies. Not only do chickadees have a lot of strategies to eat their food, but they're also very good at caching. So this is when they take food and hide it for later use. Lots of other birds like jays and squirrels aren't birds, but they will also employ these types of behaviors. But for chickadees, they found that the recall of these birds is actually really good. The hippocampus, the part of the brain that stores memory and like recalls certain things, is actually much larger in parrots, so other other birds in the parrot family, than other songbirds. So they're able to recall where they cached something and which cache held high energy food resources, even after 28 days of initially planting that cache in the first place. So their memory recall is fantastic, and they're able to basically take from a variety of the caches that they've put in the first place, which is just, I love it. It's so neat. When it comes to their behavior and how they kind of move or what kind of birds chickadees are, one thing that is interesting is that they have a tendency to flock in individuals of 3 to 12. Now, black-capped chickadees might have more of a flocking behavior in larger sizes than Carolina chickadees, but for example, this is a larger flock of black-capped chickadees. So hopefully you can still hear me okay. But essentially all the little birds up at the top of the tree are all chickadees. You can still hear them call and sing at the same time as well. And for me, anyways, this is a very unusual scene, but it is very interesting to see all of these birds in one spot together. So you never know what you're going to find just in general when watching these birds. And chickadees often do have a hierarchy within the flock that they are in. The stable flocks often also have like that stable hierarchy. So you have your males versus females, older individuals versus younger individuals, and that kind of creates the chain of hierarchy there. And what is interesting is that some individuals actually switch between flocks, and their status within that flock may vary. So they might have a higher status in one flock and a lower status in the other, but they might just shuffle around all the same. They do still compete for access to food, mates, or habitat with each other and potentially with other birds as well. But one thing that these birds also specialize in is mobbing, which is I never get tired of watching any of these behaviors. This is essentially when one or more members of a species, so in this case, one chickadee or multiple, pester a predator such as a hawk, a crow, snake, if it's nesting season, also a squirrel, to remove them from a territory. So oftentimes they will mob these individuals by calling and alerting their presence, dive bombing, or even chasing these individuals out of a specific territory. It causes the predator to lose the element of surprise as much as it makes the mobber or the chickadee more vulnerable. So it is kind of worth that exposure of themselves too. And oftentimes nearby songbirds participate or investigate this mobbing behavior, so it definitely brings a lot of attention. And in the case of this next video, let me see, wasn't able to find one of like the mobbing specifically, but this is sometimes what those chickadees sound like and how they move. And if you've ever owned a pair of binoculars, this is what it can be like to watch these birds as you're looking for them as well. So I'm not hearing anything. Hopefully you're able to hear that. If you didn't hear it, usually it's more of a deeper, raspy, kind of slower chickadee call that they'll utilize during like times of mobbing, and you'll often hear overlap because you'll have more than one individual. So make sure that whenever you hear that, I always take it as a good note to investigate and check out what's going on, because it definitely leads to a lot of interesting behaviors or interesting sights as well. Now, one thing that's also really cool during this time of year specifically is that you often find birds participating in mixed species flocks. So this primarily happens during non-breeding season. During nesting season, birds are very stressful and territorial in order to make sure that their young have the resources they need for survival. But in the wintertime, a lot of the times these birds kind of chill out and are doing their own thing. And while they might still be territorial in some ways, they have no problem kind of working inadvertently with other species in the area. So with mixed species flocks, you can have birds such as chickadees, nuthatches, woodpeckers, cardinals, warblers, all kind of in like slowly in the same area, and they kind of low-key work together. And what this does is it allows higher defense against predators, because you have more eyes that are scanning an area that could potentially alarm against those predators. Those more eyes also allow for more foraging ground to be explored, so they are able to investigate more during a certain period of time. And then, as much as you would say, well, with more, like obviously with more eyes, there's more mouths, so wouldn't they just go through the food faster? Well, it's important to remember that each species forages in different locations. So those chickadees enjoy like the outer edges of branches. Woodpeckers enjoy the trunks of trees. Birds like cardinals or doves are going to be closer to like shrubs or ground areas. So they're going to be specializing in different areas for different resources. So they're not as sassy against each other, and they also go through food resources in a longer period of time, which is great. Now, what is interesting is sometimes these aren't always intentional. Chickadees and titmice as well count as a nuclear species in these flocks. So it's their movements that define the flock path as to where these birds are going. They unintentionally act as leaders in vulnerable areas, such as like crossing an open habitat or a new area to explore. And they're often the first to arrive at a mobbing site. So these are the birds that take the initiative to kind of make things happen. Other birds like woodpeckers or nuthatches, or like certain types of warblers, may kind of just be in the area, but they're watching the chickadees to see kind of what response they give to certain things. And that noise during mobbing from chickadees and titmice alert nearby satellite species, so those birds that are not as active in initiating in these flocks, to what is going on as well. So really interesting to watch these flocks move around as well too. So again, if you hear that mobbing activity, especially during this time of year, you never know who else might pop up that you can pay attention to. So when these birds begin nesting, they'll build their nests 20 days before their first egg. So this can be anywhere from February to April, depending on like what kind of activity or when they get started. These birds are primarily cavity nesters, so they are able to excavate a new site or use a pre-existing one. So these birds can qualify sometimes as secondary cavity nesters as well, because they will take advantage of an old woodpecker hole or things like that, but they are able to excavate their own. So if they've got a area that's kind of been started, they can easily get in there and clean out some wood chips. And both the male and the female will work together to make this happen. So they will both take turns excavating as needed and cleaning up a spot for nesting. Now, once the cavity is made, the female is the one that builds the nest. So she'll use foundations of various things like leaves or bark. The main thing that chickadees utilize is moss. That is one of the big things that is an easy ID for a chickadee nest, at least for like the black caps and the Carolina chickadees. They often line these nests with feathers, animal hair, or plant down. And what they'll do is they'll have enough excess that they can use it as a flap to cover the eggs before they start incubating. So songbirds anyways, lay one egg per day. So while they're waiting for all of them to be laid before they start incubating, they'll kind of just cover it as needed. On average, it can take about 5 days for chickadees to complete a nest in the first place. Now, chickadees themselves only have one brood, so it's earlier in the season, can be anywhere from like 5 to 8 eggs, and oftentimes they have red speckles concentrated on the larger end of the egg in like this kind of thicker band as well. Incubation and nesting can take anywhere, so incubation takes about 2 weeks, while nesting takes about 2.5 weeks. But once that's done, the young are able to fledge. In the meantime, they are fed by. In this stage, these birds are altricial young, so they're blind, naked, defenseless, and require a lot of parental care because they also can't control their temperature and can't feed themselves. So that is that kind of nesting period that takes 14 to 17 days. When they finally fledge and leave the nest, these birds are independent within 2 to 3 weeks after fledging, and they often disperse into those winter flocks within 2 months of fledging. So by the time that winter comes around, they are set up and settled with other chickadees in the area as well too. When it comes to attracting these birds to the yard, again, they do enjoy some areas that do have like some deciduous trees. So if you have a more open yard, it might take a little bit more work depending on what's available or nearby you. But essentially, they do enjoy that slightly wooded habitat. And then they are great clinging birds. So they are able to use hopper feeders, which are shaped like the houses, tube feeders, which have the smaller perches, or even tray feeders, which are more of a flat open tray that you can do pretty much any food option on. Now, one thing I mentioned about these birds is that they do like to dine and dash. So if you've never seen what I'm talking about, essentially this is when they visit the feeder, they pick which seed they want, and they fly off super quickly. So you don't get much time to look at them at the feeder itself. So make sure you pay attention to kind of what branch they're going to if you're trying to watch them further past that. But one option that you can utilize are seed cylinders. These are seed into water-based gelatin that provide longer viewing time of your birds. Essentially, it's nothing for the way for chickadees to like eat the food on a seed cylinder, they have to pick which seed they want to go for and essentially kind of excavate it out of the seed cylinder. It's oh my goodness, it's no more work than what they'd have to do in the wild, and it would give you 2 to 3 seconds of viewing time versus that 1 quick second that they stop at the feeders as well. So seed cylinders can be a very easy, manageable way to feed your birds too, if you're looking at different options to consider. Now, again, these birds are also, they go for a variety of food, which is fantastic. So it doesn't take much to get their attention. Black oiled sunflower, sunflower chips, safflower. They do occasionally go for peanuts as well. Suet is something that they will also consider. So whether you have it in suet cakes or cylinders, suet is rendered beef fat mixed in with a variety of other ingredients such as insects, peanuts, fruit, mealworms. So they will take advantage of that. And that is a big thing to offer during this winter time, as it provides more fat for these birds to utilize to keep their energy high and to keep themselves warm as well too. And of course, you can also use mealworms. Whether you use dried or live mealworms is up to you. This time of year, sometimes people will focus more on the dried and might offer live during the summer months when a lot of nesting is happening, but both are totally fine. Dried is a low maintenance option, while live, we do recommend you keep those in the fridge just to keep the mealworms hibernating, so you're not going through them as quickly and they don't pupate into beetles. So those are kind of different options to consider there as well too. And if you don't have feeders but want to try and offer the birds something in your yard, one big option that these birds will go for, especially in the summer and the fall, is caterpillars. So oftentimes there are many different types of host plants that pollinators of all kinds will utilize, from oak trees to black gum, sweet gum, lots of different species of plants. And when they lay their young on these specific species, because that's what their bodies have been built to go for, they often lay many eggs. So many different butterflies, moths, things like that will have tons of caterpillars in one season. And caterpillars are high in nutrients and easy to feed for a lot of songbirds. So having things that are not treated with pesticides make it safer for pollinators to lay their eggs and other things like that. But it also provides your songbirds with a safe resource that cannot poison them in the long term as well too. And leaving the leaves in certain areas, we're still, I don't know about you, but there's still a ton of leaves in my yard. But making sure you leave those leaves that are downed in certain natural areas, because what will often happen is that a lot of pollinators will make a cocoon within leaves to kind of hibernate over the winter and into the next year season, like spring season. So when we take the leaves and put them in the bag and send them off to wherever we send them, it usually damages or hinders that life cycle as well. So having those set aside in natural areas for pollinators to kind of finish their life cycle can be very important to not just our pollinators, but a lot of our songbirds and other species as well too. So keep that stuff in mind. Not only that, but Carolina chickadees and black-capped chickadees are also very popular with nest boxes. So you can use hanging or mounted boxes with an opening diameter of 1/8 inch or 1.5 inches. Right now is a great time to set up nest boxes because, again, a lot of these birds are going to be nesting in March and through April. So setting the house up now or a few months prior to that so they have time to explore and look at their options is very important as well too. So keep that in mind as you're kind of considering ways to attract chickadees to your yard. And one thing I was seeing is that black-capped chickadees do seem to prefer nest boxes filled with like sawdust or potentially like aspen shavings or things like that that can be excavated as well too. Not to say that you have to have that, but sometimes if you're trying to attract them and you need a little bit of extra push, that might not be a bad thing to consider. So with that said, that's all I have to say about chickadees today. For those that are considering stopping in the store today or want to make a phone order, I do have a coupon code chickadee for a coupon of $5 off a $25 purchase or more via in-store or phone order today. If you would like to use that, just feel free to come on in or give us a call. And then we will be having a second viewing of this presentation in store at 11 a.m. in case you know anybody in the area that would be interested in checking that out as well too. So lots of the resources came from Maclay Library at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, where anybody can upload their photos, video, audio into an archive where others can explore and learn more about different species around the world, which is super awesome. Allaboutbirds.org is a great resource as well for easy information about local species that you may want to learn a little bit more about as well too. So just keep those in mind if you ever want to check those out as well. So with that being said, thank you guys very much for popping in. I hope you all have a great day and stay warm out there. So thanks. Bye.